Everyone. I hope you all will be okay, enjoying good health. So, in this session of dermatology, so I'm going to discuss about the next infection, and these infections are the bacterial infections. Bacterial infections of skin. Okay, so let's discuss the one by one. So, what are the bacterial infections of the skin? I think I should make the screen very more visible. No screen is okay. Okay. So in this bacterial infection of the skin, so you all know, so there are so many bacteria that are present over our skin. Oh, deep fungal infection is still remaining. Okay, so we will discuss also then after this discussion because now we have started this one. So there are the so many bacteria that are present over skin, and these bacteria that are present over skin, we call it our skin flora. Bacteria that are present over skin, we call it skin flora. Bacteria, again repeating, topic of the discussion is the bacterial infection. As you all know, there are the many types of the bacteria that are present on our skin, and we call them skin flora. And skin flora mean bacteria present over skin. So this skin flora, these skin bacteria can be two types. The bacteria that are present over skin are two types. One is the pathological and other is the non-pathological. One is non-pathological and other is pathological. It mean non-pathological mean they will present all the time over skin. So non-pathological are those skin flora, are those bacteria of the skin which are present all the time for a long time on our skin, but they don't cause any disease. It means that are the commensals. Maybe in your biology of your FSC classes, you have studied the interaction between organ to organism is the commensal. So these are the commensals. They are getting benefits from the skin and providing the benefit to the skin. It means there is a mutual commensalism. Okay, so non-pathological skin flora are those bacteria that are residing over skin for a long period of time. Okay, and they are not giving any problem to the skin, and those are non-pathological. So before going in detail of this one, still what is going on to your attendance? Just only 38 students are here. What is this? Okay, and other one bacteria that are pathological skin flora that will come for a long for short period of time. Therefore, they are called as the transient flora. So pathological are also known as transient flora. Transient flora mean they will come for the short period of time. And when they will come for the short period of time, they will cause infection. What they will cause? They will cause infections, and you will give the antibiotics for the treatment. You will treat it by giving the antibiotics. So there are the two types of the skin flora. One is the pathological. Other name of the pathological is the transient flora. Transient flora mean the skin flora are the bacteria that will invade the skin for a short period of time and they cause the infections, and then we will treat it by giving the antibiotics. So these are the transient flora. And non-pathological, they are present for a long period of time over skin. Therefore, we call them resident flora. Resident flora. Because they are living on our skin for a long period of time. Okay, and they don't cause any disease. They are common municals. Okay, municalisms. So, what are the examples of this one? Resident flora and the transient flora. So most commonly resident flora is the Staphylococcus or Staph epidermidis, Staphylococcus epidermidis, Mentissimum, Mentissimum, Mentissimum. And other example is the Corynebacterium, Corynebacterium. Keep in mind. So resident flora example is the Staphylococcus epidermidis, Mentissimum, and the Corynebacterium. So these are the resident non-pathological skin flora. Resident non-pathological, they will not cause any disease. So resident non-pathological skin flora. Pathological skin flora is the transient flora. They will come for a short period of time and they will cause the infections, and you will treat it by giving the antibiotics. So example is the Staphylococcus aureus and Streptococcus pyogenes. So here the example are the Staphylococcus, Staph aureus, okay, and other is the Strep, Streptococcus pyogenes. Pyogenes mean pus forming. So these are the two bacteria that will come pyogenes, Pyogens. So Streptococcus pyogenes and the Staph aureus, STAPH, Staph aureus and Streptococcus pyogenes. So these will come for short period of time and that they will cause the infections. So next one. So among the resident flora, which one? Among the resident flora. Resident flora mean non-pathological flora. If but we gave the examples of the resident flora like the epidermidis or the corynebacterium, especially if there is a hyperhidrosis. Hyper mean more, hydrosis means sweating. So in this hyperhidrosis, there will be a hyperproliferation of the bacteria. So this resident flora, due to hyperhidrosis, there will be a proliferation of the bacteria. So what will increase? Increase the proliferation of bacteria. So all these, it means when you have a sweating, due to that sweat, the bacterial proliferation will increase, especially resident flora. So their number will increase. So when their number will increase, so definitely the bacteria produces the enzyme. What they produce? They produce the enzyme, and name of the enzymes produced by the bacteria, that is the keratolytic enzymes. Keratolytic enzyme. So again repeating, most commonly resident flora are the non-pathological, but due to hyperhidrosis, their proliferation will increase. So when the number of the bacteria will increase, definitely they will produce more enzyme, and that enzyme is the keratolytic. Name is indicating kerato mean keratin and lytic mean breakdown. And that enzymes will cause the breakdown of the keratin cells. Or they will digest or cause the digest the keratin. They will digest keratin. If they digest the keratin on the basis of sight, if they digest the keratin of the palm and sole, palms and soles, what they will form? If they digest the keratin of axillary hair, it means especially axillary hair. What are the presentation or clinical features? If they are present and in axilla, what are the clinical presentations? Very simple. Most commonly, we have taught that resident flora is the non-pathological. So look at this one. In the start of the lecture, we said the skin flora can be non-pathological and the pathological. Because non-pathological is the resident flora, they will remain for a long period of time on the skin, but they don't cause any pathology. But sometime these staph epidermidis mintissimus or the corynebacterium, due to the hyperhidrosis, due to the hyperhidrosis, they will proliferate, and due to the proliferation, they will produce the excessive keratolytic enzymes. That keratolytic enzymes will digest the keratin. If this digestion on the basis of the site, maybe they are digesting at the palms and the soles, their action is on the axillary hair, and their action is on the axilla or groin area. So what will they do? They will make a different things. It means they will show there some disorders, and that will make the pits here. What does? They will make the pits here. Again repeating, proliferation of bacteria produce enzymes, keratolytic enzymes, that will digest the keratin. If keratin is digested and site is palm and soles, it means if the palm and soles keratin is digested, they will form the pits. What they will form? They will form pits. If the resident flora are on the axillary hair, so they will change the color of the axillary hair, and the color of the axillary hair will become yellow discoloration. Okay, axillary hair color will change yellow, that is the yellow discoloration. And if they are acting on the axilla or the groin area, so then they will form the rash, and that will be non-itchy rash. What they will make? They form non-itchy rash, are the rashes. So all these are non-pathological. Again, so keratolytic enzymes that will digest the keratin. If the bacteria is proliferating on the palm and soles, it means on the basis of site. So here on basis of site. If their acting is on the palm and soles, it means keratolytic keratolysis is happening on palm and soles, they will form pits. If they are acting on the axillary hair, then the color of the hair will change and that will make the yellow discoloration. If they are acting on the axilla or the groin area, then they will form the non-itchy rashes. It means there will be a rash and that rashes will be non-itchy rashes. So these are the effect of the residental or the resident flora or the non-pathological flora. So let's discuss the diseases of the. So here is the disorders or the diseases due to the resident flora. So disorders of resident flora. So when the resident flora causes the disorders, resident flora causes the disorders due to hyperhidrosis. Hyper mean more, hydrosis mean more sweating. They will more proliferate. When they will proliferate more, they will produce more amount of the enzymes or concentration of the enzymes, and that enzyme is the keratolytic enzymes. If that keratolytic enzymes is acting on the palm and soles, so they will form keratolytic enzymes that is acting on the palms and soles, that will form pits. What they will form? Pits. And name, so due to this pits on the palms and the soles, due to the resident flora is known as pitted keratolysis. What is the pitted keratolysis? Pitted keratolysis. So this is the first disorder. What are the first disorders due to the resident flora? First disorder due to the resident flora is the pitted keratolysis. Why? Because they are working acting on palm and soles. They will form the pits, and pits will be on the palm and soles. Due to formation of pits on the palm and soles, we call it pitted, and it is these pits are due to the keratolysis, and that keratolysis is due to the secretion of the keratolytic enzymes. So what is the predisposition or predisposing factor? Predisposing factor. It means when, what are the predisposing factor for the pitted keratolysis? So first disease is the pitted keratolysis. This is the first disorder. Okay. So predisposing factor is the hyperhidrosis. What is that? Hyperhidrosis. When there will be hyperhidrosis, so bacterial proliferation will increase. Bacterial proliferation will increase. Enzyme concentration will increase, and that keratolytic enzymes will act on the palm and sole, and it will make some pits, and that disease is known as pitted keratolysis. I will show you the image of the. So first is the pitted keratolysis. So when someone asks you what is the common site for the pitted keratolysis, common site is the palm and soles. So what is the causative agent? Causative agent is the Staphylococcus epidermidis mentissimum. What is the causative agent? Causative agent is the Corynebacterium or the staph or Staphylococcus epidermidis. So this is the first disorders of the resident flora. Other disorders, second disorder, second disorder is the Trichomycosis axillaris. Tricho. So I think today's screen will be good. Trichomycosis axillaris. Everything is hidden in the void. Tricho mean here. Mycosis mean fungal infection. Actually, most commonly. So mycosis is due to mycelium, and mycelium mean fungi. Axillaris mean axilla. It means axillary hair, hair of the axilla. Due to the fungal infection, axillary hair will be changed. But this mycosis is misnomer. It is not due to the fungi, it is due to bacteria. It is not due to the fungi, it is due to the bacteria, and that bacteria is the non pathological. Non pathological mean resident. Resident bacteria or resident flora. Resident flora mean this bacteria could be a Corynebacterium. It could be due to Corynebacterium or the it could be due to the Staphylococcus epidermidis. Staphylococcus epidermidis. Again repeating. So Trichomycosis axillaris. So this is the trichomin here. Mycosis is the fungal, most commonly due to fungi or mycelium. Axillaris mean axilla. So it means when the axillary hair, axilla, hair of the axilla, they will change. Color of the axillary hair will change due to fungal infection. But fungi is misnomer. Actually, it is due to the bacterial infection. And which one bacteria? Non-pathological bacteria. Non-pathological mean resident flora, and these resident flora are the Corynebacterium or the Staphylococcus epidermidis minutissimus. Okay, so what will happen? What are the presentation? So here the presentation or clinical feature in the Trichomycosis axillaris is the yellow discoloration over the axillary hair. What is that? There will be a yellow discoloration of axillary hair. Yellow discoloration of axillary hair. So that the Trichomycosis axillaris is a bacterial infection, not a fungal infection. So patient will present with the yellow discoloration of axillary hair. Clear? So third infection due to the non-pathological or the resident flora. So third infection is the erythema. Erythema. So erythema is also known as. So what is the erythema? First I tell you what are the erythema. Actually, erythema is the asymptomatic patches. Asymptomatic, these are patches on skin. And what will be the representation? These patches will be irregular in shape. Okay, size and color will be red brown. Red brown color. Red brown color. So these are the erythema. What are the erythema? Erythema are the asymptomatic skin patches. That means they are larger in size. Patches are larger in size than. So these are irregular in shape, irregular in size, and color will be red and brown in color. So what are the causative agents and what are the? So erythema is caused by the Corynebacterium mentissimum, caused by the Corynebacterium mentissimum. Corynebacterium mentissimum. So we have already studied that Corynebacterium mentissimum. It is the non-pathological and it is the resident flora. So it means this erythema is the infection or the disorders due to the resident flora. So what are the clinical presentations or clinical feature due to the erythema? So clinically patient will come with the irregular shape and size of the patches, and these patches will be most commonly present on the axilla and the groin, but most commonly axilla. So what are the clinical presentation? Clinically, when the patient has the erythema, patient will has the asymptomatic patches that will be irregular in shape and size, and color of the erythema will be red brown in color. Where they are present, site is the axilla and the groin areas. Okay, so what are the examination? On examination, when you will do the examination of the erythema, on examination is the erythema. How will you examine the erythema? For examining the erythema, you will use the Wood's lamp. Wood's lamp is used. We have studied that Wood's lamps multiple times with detail, so no need to discuss the Wood's lamp again and again. So this Wood's lamp, you will feel or you will show there will be a coral red fluorescence. On the Wood's lamp examination, there will be coral red fluorescence. It means red fluorescence. This patches will appear red. We have studied that actual color is the red and brown. So when you look the Wood's lamp, they will appear coral red. It means somewhat apple like red. And this coral red fluorescence is due to production of the coproporphyrin, due to production of coproporphyrin 3, due to production of due to coproporphyrin 3 production, and that is produced by bacteria. not your skin. Keep in mind. So bacteria, especially Corynebacterium mentissimum, that will produce the coproporphyrin. So here is one thing is hidden here. Porphyrin. So coproporphyrin, what is that? That is the porphyrin metabolite. It means when there is the heme metabolysis or the metabolism of the heme, so coproporphyrin is the porphyrin metabolite. So this porphyrin metabolite, that is the coproporphyrin 3 produced by the bacteria, and it will give the coral red fluorescence on the examination. So what are the site? Site is the groin and the axilla, and most commonly it is the groin, or sorry, axilla. So what? How will you treat it? All these three disorders. Page number 7. How will you treat it? Treatment. Okay, 1 minute, please. Actually, my baby came in my room, so he was making noise. Okay, so what is the treatment of these three disorders? Okay, how will you treat this three disorders? So treatment for these, because these are the bacterial, so you will treat it by giving the first one treatment is you will give the topical and other is the systemic. So you can treat it topically. So treatment is the two type of the treatment. Topical treatment, what you will give topically, and systemic systemic treatment. In the topical treatment, you will give the fusidic acid. Fusidic acid. How much fusidic acid? That contains 2% sodium fusidate. 2% sodium fusidate. Actually, what is the fusidic acid? You get this fusidic acid from the fungus, and that fungus is the fusidium. You will get this fusidic acid, or you will get or derive it from fungus fusidium. Fungus fusidium. And this fusidic acid that you derive from the fungus fusidium, it is a bacteriostatic. It is the bacteriostatic. It is not a bactericidal, it is a bacteriostatic. Okay, so how it works? So it is actually protein synthesis inhibitor. Protein synthesis inhibitor. It will inhibit the synthesis of the protein. So you will give the topically fusidic acid. How much? 2% sodium fusidate. That you get the fusidic acid from the fungus fusidium, and that is bacteriostatic, and that is the protein synthesis inhibitor. Bacteria will not synthesize its protein, so it will not proliferate or replicate. So next one is the systemic treatment. So systematically, you can use two antibiotics. First one is the clarithromycin, and erythromycin. Erythromycin. So which is more potent? Which has the more efficacy? Clarithromycin has more efficacy, or erythromycin has more efficacy? You have studied the pharmacology. So which one is the more potent? Clathro?
Erythromycin.
Which one? Definitely clethromycin. So erythro was the basic formula or basic nuclei clethromycin, and later nowadays we are using the azithromycin. Okay. So when this drug is more potent, clethromycin is more potent, then you will give the 1 gram. Okay. If erythromycin is the less potent, so you will give it the 250 4 times a day. How much? 250 erythromycin milligram and 4 times a day. 4 times a day. You write this 4 times a day mean QID. It is the Latin abbreviation QID. Q mean quarter a day. Quarter a day mean 4 times a day. It does not mean quarter portion one in day. It means 4 times a day. So that is the treatment. So before going to treat this, so you have to treat the predisposing factor. It means you have to eradicate the predisposing factor. So treatment for predisposing factor. You know, when you want to treat any disease, first you will focus to treat the factor or etiology of that disease. So what is the predisposing factor in these diseases? What are the predisposing factor in these bacterial disorders?
Hyperhidrosis.
Hyperhidrosis, definitely. So here is the first you have to treat the hyperhidrosis. So in spite of treating the bacteria, so first to treat the hyperhidrosis, that is the predisposing factor. So how will you treat the hyperhidrosis? So for the treatment of the hyperhidrosis, there are the multiple options. So first you can treat the hyperhidrosis by giving the topical drugs. You can treat it by giving the injections. You can do it by the electrophoresis techniques, and we call that technique as the iontophoresis. Iontophoresis. And lastly, you can do it by the I think now you are the senior most student of the university because 2015 batch treatment for the predisposing factor. So here the predisposing factor is the hyperhidrosis. You can treat it topically, injection, antophoresis. Okay, so we can bother on it. Okay, don't some students are sir, can you change the time? So we can bother on it later. First discuss and surgery. Here the X means surgery. So what will you do one by one? What will you give topically for the hyperhidrosis? So topically for the hyperhidrosis, you will give the aluminium chlorhydrate. What you will give? Topically, you will give the aluminium chlorhydrate. How much? You will give the 20% aluminium chlorhydrate. And 1% formalin solution. Formalin solution. If you apply 20% aluminium chlorhydrate plus 1% formalin solution, that can be treated with the hyperhidrosis. So injections, which one injections you can give for the hyperhidrosis? An injection is the Botox injection. Actually, I tell you. So this Botox injection is given for the multiple treatment or multiple purposes. Actually, what this Botox injection has? Have you heard the name? Botulinum toxin. Botulinum toxin. Have you ever had the botulinum toxin? So it is a toxic substance created by the bacteria. That is the botulinum toxin. So I am discussing the Botox very simple way. It will help you in your physiology, repetition, and also pathology. Myasthenia gravis type. So here is the nerve, that is the presynaptic nerve neuron, and this is the postsynaptic neuron. Postsynaptic. So here is the synapses. In between there is a gap, that is the synapses. So you have studied the neuromuscular junction. Maybe you have studied it. So this is the presynaptic. It will secrete the acetylcholine ACH, and that will act on the postsynaptic acetylcholine receptors, and then it will show the contraction and whatever. This is normal physiology. But when you use the botulinum toxin, so here are the channels for the acetylcholine. With me, you know some of the acetylcholine is reabsorbed and so on. So the botulinum toxin will block the presynaptic acetylcholine receptor. These are blocked. So what will happen? There is a less secretion of acetylcholine. So when the acetylcholine is less on the postsynaptic, it will not show its proper effect. So then the contraction will become halted. That is the effect of botulinum toxin. Clear? So in the Botox, what is present? In the Botox, actually, Clostridium botulinum is present. What is that? Clostridium. You know, bacteria Clostridium. So that is the Clostridium botulinum. Clostridium botulinum. So behavior is same as the botulinum toxin. Okay. So you use the Botox injection for the reduction of the facial wrinkle are reduced. It means Botox injections are also used for the reduction of the facial wrinkles. It is also used for the cervical dystonia. Cervical dystonia. Dystone means tone of the cervix. Cervical muscle is not good. It means it is used for the neck spasm. Cervical dystonia means neck spasm. So Botox injections contain the Clostridium botulinum. Okay, that is the presynaptic acetylcholine receptors blocker. So it is used for the reduction of the facial wrinkles, cervical dystonia mean neck spasm, and also used for the hyperhidrosis. Hyperhidrosis, and also you can use it for the lazy eye. So for the eye injection, so it can be used. So actually, this in a shortcut way, this Botox is the neurotoxin. Neurotoxin. It means it is toxic for the nerves, presynaptic nerve. So you give the Botox injection for reduction of the facial wrinkles. It means the women who are more exaggerated or the obsessive compulsion disorder for the beauty, so they can use for the reduction of the facial wrinkle. If someone has the neck spasm or the cervical dystonia, and also used for the hyperhidrosis, so we are using it for the hyperhidrosis. Okay, next one is the antophoresis. Name is indicated eins to towards phoresis. It means this is the transdermal drug delivery. Antophoresis. Let's discuss the antophoresis. Antophoresis. It is the transdermal drug delivery. It means you have studied the different ways of the drug delivery: parenteral, intramuscular, transvaginal, transrectal, suppositories, and such are given. So here the transdermal drug delivery. It means through the skin. Here is the cornea, stratum basale, stratum whatever. So you will give the drug, apply the drug here. So you will apply the drug, put the drugs here, and then you will give the different voltage. Maybe here is a positive and outside is negative. So it means that is the voltage difference on the basis of voltage difference. So this drug will absorb and that will cause the treat the hyperhidrosis. Actually, which one drugs are given by the intophoresis? So these are used for the palmoplantar hyperhidrosis. Actually, drug that is given by the intophoresis is the glycopyrronium. Glycopyrronium. Bromide. Bromide ions. So glycopyrronium bromide is given by the way of the intophoresis, and actually this glycopyrronium bromide is used for hyperhidrosis, and that is the palmoplantar. Palmoplantar hyperhidrosis. Clear? So for the palmoplantar hyperhidrosis, technique is called as intophoresis, and you will use the glycopyrronium bromide and treat it for the palmoplantar hyperhidrosis. Clear? And here you will make a solution first, and that solution is made in water. And you will make a solution with water. H2O is the water. You will mix it with the water and make a solution. When solution is made, and then you will deliver this drug. Next one, last one technique is the surgery. Last one is the surgery. That is the technique number 4. So what will you do in this surgery? You will remove all the glands, sweat glands. What will you do in the surgery? So you know in our dermis there are the sweat glands, and these sweat glands. So here is the sweat gland. Okay, and these sweat glands are controlled by the nerves, and these nerves have the ganglion, and these nerves that are responsible for the hyperhidrosis, that is sympathetic nerves are responsible for the hyperhidrosis. So if surgically you remove the sympathetic nerve ganglion, so that is called the sympathectomy. Sympathectomy. Ectomy mean removal. Ectomy. 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 Sympathectomy. It means there is a removal of the sympathetic nerve, cutting of the sympathetic nerve, and removing the sympathetic nerve ganglion. So then there is no control of the sympathetic nervous system of the sweat glands, so less hyperhidrosis. Clear? So by this way you can treat the predisposing factors. So next one, we have discussed the 3 disorders due to the resident bacteria. So next one is the other disorders due to the transient flora. So let's remove from which part of the body. Okay, so he said, sir, remove the sympathetic ganglion from which part of the body? First, look at which part of your body is the more sweating. Axilla, face, upper chest, groin area, palm and sole. So these are the areas of your body where there is excessive sweating. Sweat glands are more and more. So definitely axillary, groin area, upper chest, where the hairs are present, so you will remove that area. Okay. So let's move on to the disorders of the transient flora. So disorders of the skin. that are due to transient flora. Here is not a resident, here is the transient flora. It means this bacteria will come for a smaller period of time and then they will cause the skin infections. So first one is the impetigo. Okay, I have to silence your mics. So first one infection is the impetigo. Impetigo. So there are the two types of the impetigo. One is the non-bullous and other is the bullous. We have studied in the bullous pemphigoid and bullous and whatever. Today my speed is very slow because most of the students requested me, sir, go slowly. So you know, bullous mean fluid-filled lesions. So when there is a no fluid-filled lesions, we call it non-bullous. When there is a fluid-filled skin lesions, we call it bullous. Okay, and this bullous or non-bullous impetigo is most common. So that is most common is the non-bullous impetigo, and we call it impetigo contagiosa. We call it impetigo contagiosa. Impetigo contagiosa. Contagiosa. Okay. So impetigo contagiosa is the non-bullous and other is the bullous. So what are the causative organisms for the bullous and the non-bullous? So we'll discuss it one by one in the comparison fashion. Here is the impetigo contagiosa and the bullous. So here is the first one is the causative organisms. Causative. Causative organism for this one is the two types. One is the streptococcus and other is the staphylococcus. So streptococcus is also causative and staphylococcus is also causative, but it depends on the region. So if it is a developing country, Asian country developing, then streptococcus is prominent. If it is a developed country, then staphylococcus. Clear? Most common is the staphylococcus and streptococcus, and developing country and the developed country. But here is always Staphylococcus aureus. Staphylococcus aureus. AUREUS. Staphylococcus aureus. So what are the clinical presentations or clinical feature? So clinically, it is a non-bullous, so it is most common in child, and site is the face. So it is also most common in child, and site is also face. But what is the difference? So here the regions, because it is non-bullous, so regions are not fluid filled. So regions here are not fluid filled, and we call these regions that will be golden yellow. I will show you the image, and that golden yellow will be honey colored crusting. So golden yellow or honey color like the honey, and these will be crusting. Keep in mind, these are crustings. These are not fluid filled lesions. These are crusting, and these crustings are the golden yellow honey colored crustings. Our regions are the golden yellow honey colored crustings. But here included in child and present on the face, but these are the subcorneal bulla because these are the bullous. So these are the subcorneal. bullous, subcorneal bulla, because these are the fluid filled lesions, and these subcorneal bullous formation, and it will give you the hypopion sign. Subcorneal bullous, it means fluid filled lesion. What does it mean? Fluid filled lesion. If on the face and of child there are fluid filled lesions and showing the hypopion. Hypo mean less and pion. Pion mean pus. So hypopion sign, it means pus is present. So look at this is the bullous and this fluid filled lesion. This is the lesion that is filled with the fluid is present on the face of child. But in this fluid filled lesion, lower side, here is the pus formation. Pus is present inferiorly. In this bullous, if on the face there are the fluid filled lesion, but lower portion of the fluid filled lesion is filled with pus, we call it hypopion sign. Here, there is no hypopion sign. I will also discuss some cases and also show you the images. Lower half of the bulla has the hypopion. Clear? So, what is the treatment? So, here is the treatment. So, here is the treatment for the non-bullous and treatment for the bullous. Non-bullous, impetigo, and here is the bullous. So both are the bacterial infections. Okay. So here this is treated by the erythromycin. Erythromycin, because it is not a fluid filled lesion, just only crustings. So you will give the erythromycins, and here it is a fluid filled lesions, and that are the subcorneal fluid filled lesions. So you will give the dicloxacillin. Cloxacillin. Dicloxacillin. But empirically, for the both of one common, for the common drug, if you don't know which one drug you should give because these are the bacterial infections, commonly you can give the cephalosporins. So cephalosporins are used for both. It can be used for the bullous impetigo and the non-bullous impetigo. Okay, and some you can also give the some topical antibiotics can be used for both. So which one topical antibiotics you can use? Fusidic acid, I already told you. Fusidic acid can be used. Ibuprofen, Ibuprofen can be used. So these are the topical antibiotics. But keep in mind, here are the crusting. Look at here. I told you in this case, there are the crusting. If you want to remove this crust, okay, so that you can use the KMNO solution. What? For removing the crusting, you can use KMNO solution. KMNO4 solution is used to remove the crusting. So if it is a crusting, then you can use the KMNO, potassium permanganate solution is used. How much it is used? You will use the 1:10,000 H2O. It means 10,000 concentration of water and only one drop of the KMNO4. It means in 1 liter, 1000 drop means simply in 1 or 10 liter, you will put a small amount of the KMNO4 and you will apply it. And this technique is known as Condi compression. Condi compression. Clear? So cone decompression is used for removing of the crusting. Okay, next one. If you don't treat it, what will happen? You simply, when you don't treat any disease, so that disease will become more and more complicated, and it produces the complications. So what are the complications? If you don't treat it, so it will lead to the complications. So what are the complications due to non-bullous, and what are the complications due to the bullous impetigo? Okay, so first one complication, it can lead to the post streptococcal glomerulonephritis. Post streptococcal glomerulonephritis, you have studied in your pathology. So it is the post streptococcal glomerulonephritis, inflammation of the glomerulus of the kidney. So when you will not treat it, this bullous impetigo, so it will lead to SSS, S, tetra S, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, tetra S. S mean staphylococcus, because it is caused by the staphylococcus, staph, scalded skin syndrome. Staphylococcus scalded skin syndrome. Staphylococcus scalded skin syndrome. And so other name of the staphylococcus scalded skin syndrome is the Ritter disease. What is that? Ritter disease. Ritter. Ritter disease. Okay, so other name of the scalded skin syndrome or the staphylococcus scalded syndrome is the pemphigus neonatorum, because it is a pemphigus neonatorum. Neonatorum means neonates. So it is the, like we have studied the bullous pemphigoid. So it is the bullous pemphigus neonatorum, or it is the some type of the foliaceous, pemphigus foliaceous, because it resembles with pemphigus foliaceous. Clear? So it means there will be crusting of the skin, especially epidermal crusting. So when the newborn will born, so you will feel that on legs, on lower abdomen, on thighs, so there will be red patches. Along with these red patches, there will be a epidermal crusting. Epidermal will be lesion out. Epidermal lesion out will happen. So it means there is a Nikolsky sign will be positive here. What will be positive? So in this scalded staphylococcus scalded skin syndrome, epidermis is going to lesion out. Epidermis is going to dislodged. When it is lesion out and dislodged, so we call this, in this condition, that there will be a Nikolsky sign. It will be positive. When you feel the epidermis or the epidermal patches are going to dislodge, then Nikolsky sign is positive. But this staphylococcus scalded skin syndrome, or Ritter disease, or pemphigus neonatorum, it is only a disease of the skin or epidermis, but there is no mucosal involvement. Mucosa is not involved. Only newborn baby, their legs, epidermis of thighs, epidermis of the lower abdomen, epidermis of the upper chest, it is going to dislodged. So Nikolsky sign is positive, but the mucosa will be spare. There will be no mucosal involvement. Clear? So next one disease. We have studied this disease, its complications and everything. So let's move on to the other disease are the bacterial infection, and next bacterial infection is the ecthyma. So second one after the impetigo, next one is the ecthyma. Okay, so actually this ecthyma, it is a deeper variant of the impetigo. It is the variant of the impetigo but deeper variant. It means it will go deep. It is the deeper variant of impetigo. It means impetigo is superficial or the epidermal, but it can go up to the dermis. So what will happen here? So what are the lesions or clinical presentations? What are the clinical features of this ecthyma? Clinically, patient will present to you with the indurated lesions, indurated lesions with necrotic crust, with crust, and that crust will be due to the necrosis. So with crusting, first will be lesions, and that lesions will due to the necrosis it will turn into the crusts. If you remove this crust, if you remove this crust, then it will change into the ulcer, lead to the ulcer formation. Very simple clinical presentation. Initially there will be indurated, it means raised and circular lesions. Later on it will change into the necrotic crusting. If we remove this crust, then they will make a ulcer, so lead to the ulcer formation. Okay, so there are the different types of the ecthyma. So types of ecthyma. So first type is the ecthyma pyogenicum. Ecthyma pyogenicum. Clear? Second type is the ecthyma gangrenosum. Gangrenosum. And other type of the ecthyma is the ecthyma contagiosum. Contagiosum. So these are the three types of the ecthyma: pyogenicum, gangrenosum, and the contagiosum. Okay, so every type of the ecthyma has the different causative organisms. These first two are bacterial, are the bacterial in origin, and this last one is the viral. Causative organism is the virus. So ecthyma pyogenicum. So causative organism is the, it is caused by the group A beta hemolytic streptococcus. Beta hemolytic streptococcus. Gangrenosum, it is caused by the Pseudomonas. Pseudomonas aeruginosa. Pseudomonas aeruginosa. And contagiosum, it is a viral, so it is caused by the Parapox virus. Parapox virus. So it means this ecthyma can be a bacterial ecthyma or it can be a viral ecthyma. Clear? So it can be different types, viral and the bacterial ecthyma. So when it is a bacterial ecthyma, you will treat by the giving the antibiotics. When it is a viral, so it can be self-limiting because there are not too much antiviral drugs. Okay. So next one, bacterial infections of the skin is the erysipelas, erysipelas and cellulitis. Erysipelas for third one, and fourth one is this cellulitis, because these are very smaller kind of the infections. So we are going to discuss with the difference or the comparison point of view. First, some words related to the erysipelas. So actually erysipelas is also known as the Saint Anthony fires. So is the St. Anthony fire. So Saint Anthony fire is two type. One is the erysipelas, that is the bacterial in nature. So erysipelas is bacterial. Okay, but other ones is the ergotism. It is the ergotamine. Okay, so it mean it is due to the ergot poisoning. So that ergotism is causative organism is the ergot poisoning. It means when the pregnant mother, she will eat the wheat or the rice, and that rice is contaminated with the ergot poison, and that ergot poison will go, or that alkaloid will go into the fetus, and that cause the ergotism. Okay, so what are the ergotism? Due to the ergot poison, so there could be a painful seizure in the newborn. There could be a diarrhea because it is a poison, so definitely it will lead to the diarrhea, and also could be a mental disability, we call it mania, the manic disability, mania. So it means ergotism is due to the ergot poison. Where the ergot poison can happen, this ergot poison can happen due to ingestion of the alkaloid. Okay, so when the wheat or rice that are contaminated with the alkaloid, especially ergot, so then mother is become contaminated. That poison will go through placenta to the baby, and that newborn has the seizure, diarrhea, mania, and that is due to the ergot poisoning. We call it ergotism. So skin rashes can be present. Other skin Saint Anthony fire is the erysipelas. So in erysipelas, the causative organism is the bacteria or bacterial erysipelas or bacterial Saint Anthony fire. So what are the conditions here? So let's discuss one by one. So here is the cellulitis and is the erysipelas. So how what are the conditions here? So actually here I told you causative organism is the, so here I told you causative organism is the group A beta hemolyticus whatever, and cellulitis causative organism is the streptococcus and the staphylococcus. So here is the causative organism is the streptococcus or staphylococcus aureus. Okay, so next, so what are the features, clinical presentations of the erysipelas? Clinical features of the erysipelas. there will be a raised, well-defined, tender, bright red rashes on the face. It means on face, what will be present? Fire-like. Fire-like mean raised, tender, red, well-defined rash. This is the erysipelas. So clinically, these there will be raised, tender, red, well-defined rashes, and that will be present on the face. Clear? Next one is the cellulitis. What are the clinical presentation of the cellulitis? So cellulitis is also present on cellulitis. Okay, so cellulitis is due to the streptococcus and staphylococcus aureus, and clinical presentations are there will be a diffused rashes, diffused diffused rashes. I will show you the image of both. In the case of the erysipelas, you will feel on the face they will be raised. So when you forget the clinical presentation of the erysipelas, you can keep in mind there is a Saint Anthony fire. So fire is always bright red. Okay, so fire is also appear very visible. So these are present on the face. You know, face or the facial part of the person is very visible. So when you feel on the face, there are the especially neck, oh sorry, nose and the cheeks. There are the bright red and well-defined raised rashes. Okay, not a butterfly shape. When there is a butterfly shape rashes on the face, that is the SJS, Steven Johnson syndrome. But here are these are the raised, tender, red, and well-defined. It means their margins are very clear, clear margins. We call it erysipelas. When the margins are not clear, like this one, so we call them the diffused. So when the margins are diffused, these are the cellulitis. But these are because on the basis of the clinical presentation, you can't differentiate it properly. But there are some important points. By using that points, you can easily differentiate the cellulitis and the erysipelas. Okay, erysipelas and cellulitis. So first one you can define this one by the million-year sign. Million-year sign. On the basis of million-year sign. So actually, in this case of cellulitis, when you are discussing the cellulitis, cellulitis is due to the involvement of deeper subcutaneous tissue. Cellulitis, here are the diffused rashes. What is that? Diffused rashes. And that diffused rashes are due to involvement of deeper subcutaneous tissue. So it means when you feel on the face, when you're looking or observing the face, on the face there are the bright red, raised, tender rashes. But you don't clear these rashes. bright red, raised, tender, and rashes. So, but you are not clear. These are the erysipelas or the cellulitis, but these are present on face. So you can't properly diagnose it. Then how will you diagnose it? So then you will look the air. You will ask the patient to show their air. Okay. So in the case of the cellulitis, air involvement is absent. Okay. Why? Because when these bright red, raised, tender rashes are present on the face but not present on the air. Why? Because cellulitis is due to involvement of deeper subcutaneous tissues. So subcutaneous tissues are not present in the air. Subcutaneous tissues are not present in air. So when subcutaneous tissues are not present in air, so definitely that is not a cellulitis, because cellulitis is the bacterial infection that is the due to involvement of deeper subcutaneous tissue. It means million air sign is absent in the cellulitis, but it is present in the erysipelas. It means when the bright red, raised, tender rashes are present on the face, then you look the air or observe the air of the patient, they will be present or the air involvement will be occur. So they will present in the air. Clear? Cellulitis is the deeper tissue involvement. Erysipelas is the upper tissue involvement, and deeper tissue means subcutaneous tissues involvement. When there is a cellulitis or bacterial cellulitis, it means there is a deeper tissue, subcutaneous tissues are involved, and these subcutaneous tissues are not present in the air. So in the cellulitis, only bright red, raised, tender rashes will be present on face. They will not present in the air. But in the case of the erysipelas, bright red, raised, tender rashes will be present on face and also present on the air. So air involvement is also present. Clear? So here are the some cases we are going to discuss the some clinical case. So these are the some different bacterial infections we have discussed. So let's move on the clinical cases. So you have to identify or diagnose that clinical cases. Okay. So what in this session, look at the first clinical case or clinical scenario. First clinical case is the 5 years old female or the child, especially 5 years old female presented with, keep in mind you can write it, 5 years old female presented with fever, sore throat, because it is a bacterial infection. So when there is a bacterial infection, definitely will be fever, sore throat, facial rashes. Okay, and you do the physical examination. On physical examination, 5 years old female presented with the fever, sore throat, facial rashes. On the physical examination, it reveals, when you will do the physical examination, it will reveal the erythematous pharynx, because it is a sore throat. So it reveals the erythematous pharynx because there is a sore throat without exudate. Without exudate, but with red painful patches on cheeks. Okay, so what is your diagnosis and what is your treatment of this patient? So what is your diagnosis, what is your treatment? Again repeating this clinical case: 5 years old female presented with fever. She has the sore throat, facial rashes. On physical examination, it means patient is in front of you. You examine, it reveals there are the erythematous pharynx, inflamed pharynx, but without exudate. But without exudate, but with red painful patches. And these patches are on face, it means especially on cheeks. So what is your diagnosis? I am waiting from your side. What is your diagnosis? Pharyngitis? So here is the one student told me, what is that? Good. Actually, it is impetigo. What is that? Diagnosis is impetigo. I tell you, what is your diagnosis? So here diagnosis is impetigo. So you know we have studied there are the two types of the impetigo. Non-bullous. It is non-bullous. And non-bullous impetigo means impetigo contagiosa. Impetigo contagiosa or non-bullous impetigo. How you identify? Because a non-bullous impetigo or impetigo contagiosa, it mostly happens in child. So here, age is 5 years, female. So one feature is the female, that is the 5 years. So it happens on the child. Secondly, so it is the non-bullous, so without exudate. Without exudate mean, secondly, on the basis of the non-bullous, no fluid-filled lesions. So without exudate. Third feature you have diagnosed it, that is the face involvement. What is involvement? Face involvement. So here most of the lesions are on cheeks. And what is the color of this lesion? Red. So on this basis of the face involvement, child and the non-bullous, it means red lesions. These red lesions will be golden colored or honeybee colored red lesions. Okay, so this is the bullous, non-bullous, impetigo or the impetigo contagious. So how you treat it? Definitely you will give the antibiotics. Okay, and also you can give this cephalosporins. If you want to give the topical antibiotics, you can give the physidic acid. Okay, and whatever. So this is the first you can diagnose it. Then treatment is very simple because it is a bacterial infection. You can give the erythromycin and the cephalosporins systematically, and also give the topical antibiotics physidic acid. Okay, next clinical presentation or next clinical case. 2021. Most majority So yes, for the topical and non-bullous and bullous, both for both. So a female with this cellulitis, here is a female with cellulitis. So here is the cellulitis of lower leg. It means female has a cellulitis on the lower leg. So she had culture. Culture has done. It means a very simple female with cellulitis of the lower leg. Culture had done. Culture had done of affected area. It means you do the culture of the affected areas. So when you do the culture of the affected areas, so it is due to which organism? It means when you do the culture, it is due to which organism? Okay, definitely. Simple answer, very simple answer here. So it is due to the Streptococcus and the Staphylococcus aureus. Staphylococcus and Streptococcus aureus. So keep in mind, here is the involvement is the leg involvement. What is the involvement? Legs involvement. Okay, so when there is a leg involvement, so what do you see the million air sign? When there is a leg involvement, what do you see the million air sign? No. In the case of the leg involvement, you will not see the million air sign. When there is a which one involvement? Face involvement, then you will see the million air sign to differentiate the cellulitis from the erysipelas. Okay. So next question. So which of the following organism is not a part of normal flora? Which of following organisms is not a part of normal flora of skin? I gave you the option A, Staph epidermidis, B, Staph aureus, Staph aureus, C, E. coli, and D, Candida albicans. So we have discussed all the diseases from the Candida albicans. So which of these following? B.
E. coli.
Okay. So one students go with the B, Staphylococcus aureus.
C. E.
When we
coli, sir.
study, definitely. So it is the Staphylococcus epidermidis. Epidermidis means skin. Staphylococcus, it means the bacteria that is infecting the skin. So it is a part. This is right. Staphylococcus aureus, it can cause the pathological skin or pathological skin flora that can cause the bullous, so whatever. So it is a part. E. coli, it is not a part of the skin flora. So C option is right. Candida is a part of skin flora. It is a part, but E. coli is not a. So where the E. coli is found, if it is not found on the skin, not on skin. E. coli is not on skin. Then where it is present? Where it is found? What is the habitat for E. coli?
Intestine.
So definitely it is present in the intestine. It is present in the intestine. Okay, what is the pathology caused by the E. coli? What is the infection, most common infection due to E. coli? Most commonly, very very common, extremely common.
Vomiting.
Oh, good. Vomiting is infection. Diarrhea, no. Oh, good. Here one student is good. UTI, urinary tract infection. Vomiting is not infection. Vomiting is due to infection. That is clinical presentation. Clear? So infection is UTI. Very simple. Why? Because, okay, again, this UTI infection in due to E. coli is more common in male or female. We have told you that E. coli is not present on skin. It is present in the intestine, and most common infection due to E. coli is the urinary tract infection, and it is most common in male or female. Definitely, it is more common in female. Why? Because in the female, the urethra is, or the female genital organ is very close to the female anus, so it can go from the female anus into the urethra and cause the infections, urinary tract infections. But in the case of male, there is not too much distance or gap between the male and the female. Oh, sorry, anus and the. So next one, third case, clinical scenario 23. So now you will tell me 28 years old female, 28 years old female presented with the shallow, discrete, presented with, here is the shallow. What are the clinical presentation? Shallow, discrete, coalescent pits. Coalescent pits. Okay, coalescents mean they are making a combination or gathering together. So here is the one pit, other pit, and other pit. So there are the multiple pits. So when the multiple pits combine together and make a joint pit, that is the coalescent pits. Okay, hyperhidrosis has the hyperhidrosis, malodor, it means smell over her palm and sole. Foul smell. So what is your diagnosis? Again repeating, 28 years old female that is presented with the shallow, discrete, coalescent pits, and these pits are the on palms and soles. So when the pits are sites are palms and soles involvements, and this is due to hyperhidrosis, it means predisposing factors are present. And due to hyperhidrosis, when there's a hyperhidrosis, so okay, tell me first, before going to diagnosis of this one, so what is the smell of normal sweat? What is the smell? Foul smell, no smell, sweet smell, salty smell? What is the smell of the? So normal sweating has no smell. It means it is a odorless. So when the sweating occurs, there is a sweating. So in this sweating, it is a very good culture for the proliferation of the bacteria. So due to sweating, bacteria will proliferate, and that bacteria will make sweat smelly, foul smell. That foul smell of the sweat is due to bacterial proliferation. So here is the hyperhidrosis. It means excessive sweating. Due to hyperhidrosis, there will be a proliferation of bacteria, and that proliferated bacteria will give the malodor, foul smell, and that foul smell is on the palm and soles. So what is your diagnosis? Very simple diagnosis is the pitted keratolysis. Pitted keratolysis. Very good. So pitted keratolysis. Pitted keratolysis. Okay. On the Woods lamp examination, last one. What is that? Okay. So on the Woods lamp examination, you feel the axilla has the coral red fluorescence. When the axilla has coral red fluorescence, so what is your diagnosis? On the basis of the examination, so when the Woods lamp examination, it feels there is a coral red fluorescence. That is the erythrasma. Okay. Erythrasma. Okay. So erythrasma on the Woods lamp examination, so there will be a color will be the coral red. Okay. Last one. Only last one question. Okay. Here is the question is 7-year old boy presented with presented with the subcorneal or presented with the bullous on examination. You will feel hypopion. What is your diagnosis? 7-year old boy presented with the bullous. Okay, and that bullous is on face. Bullous on face. When you examine, you feel hypopion. How will you feel? It means this is the bullous on the face and this is the fluid filled lesion, but lower end or the lower side of this fluid filled lesion is filled with the pus. So pus is present or collected in the lower half of the bulla. So lower half of the bulla is filled with the pus. What is that your diagnosis? So very simple diagnosis is the bullous impetigo. What is that? Bullous impetigo. So this is the bullous impetigo because here bullous impetigo, first you will get some clue here because it is a 7 years old. So it is a child or the most common it is child and it is present on the face and also bullous. It means fluid filled lesions. When this fluid filled lesion has the hypopion, so you will call it bullous impetigo. So how will you treat it? What is the drug of choice for the bullous impetigo? How will you treat it? when you don't remember the drug of the choice or the treatment of the choice, then you can go with the cephalosporins, because cephalosporins can be used for the both impetigo, bullous, and the contagious or non-bullous. But here, when they ask you drug of choice, then you can go with the dicloxacillin. Which one? Dicloxacillin. So first you will give the digoxin, but if you don't remember, then you can give the, when the option cephalosporins are present, then you can go with the cephalosporin. When in option cephalosporins and digoxin both are present, then keep in mind you will go with the digoxin. Okay. So here I'm going to end my lecture. So
Sir,
inshallah, yes.
sir, fusidic acid can be used for treatment of bullous impetigo.
Actually, bullous impetigo is a bullous. So are the fluid filled lesions. Fusidic acid is used as a topically. I tell you why we can't use it. If you use any treatment that is the topical treatment, especially fusidic acid, if you use it, there is a bullous and you use the fusidic acid. So this bullous can be due to genetic defect. What is that genetic defect? Because this is due to the desmoglein. Okay, here is the desmoglein 1. So bullous will form due to the desmoglein 1 rupture. When it will rupture, it will rupture due to autoimmune disease, or here in the impetigo, bullous impetigo. So that will be due to the toxins that will produced by the staphylococcus. So staphylococcus will produce the toxin that will destroy this desmoglein, and then it will lead to the bullous formation. If you give the topical fusidic acid, so this fusidic acid will not, because it is a fluid filled lesion. So fusidic acid will not reach up to the toxin. Okay. So when it will not reach up to the toxin, so how it will inhibit the growth by the protein synthesis inhibiting. Therefore, we mostly avoid. Okay. So mostly we give the systematic treatment. And still you have to differentiate whether this bullous or the pemphigus foliaceus is a genetic, or this is due to the bacterial infection. Okay, if it is bacterial infection, you will give the antibiotics. If it is due to the genetic, then you will go with the steroids. But topically is mostly not recommended. I told you reason, because it is a fluid filled lesion. When you apply it topically, it will not reach up to the toxins or the causative organisms. So you can't stop the growth of the causative organisms as the bacteriostatic growth. Good. You got your answer?
Yeah, okay, sir.
Okay, welcome. Any other question?
No.
No question? Okay. So I think today I told you related to your attendance. So next time you will be careful, because one